Editing Michaela here to let you know that I forgot to introduce myself at the beginning of this video. So, hi. If you don't know me, I'm Michaela, but you can call me Mick, and welcome to my channel where we dive a little bit deeper. Okay, now back to Past Michaela. I'm kind of freaking out. Thank you guys for, in my mind's blowing up my first video. When starting this channel, I truly just wanted it to be a space where I could hold myself accountable for this writing project, you know, write the damn book, where I could geek out over storycraft and really study it with all of you. And in general, just make videos because it's kind of fun. But now I'm realizing that I am like super perceived by the world. So thank you for that. It's very exciting and scary at the same time. But I promise to keep giving you guys just real raw content of my writing journey. Today we are outlining, which depending on what type of writer you are, this is either your favorite step in the process or one of your least favorite. I gotta be honest, this is one of my least favorite. I usually stay in that like planning, research, idea phase for so long, and I dread the day where I have to actually put all of that into something that makes sense, which is the outline. In the past, I fell in between a pantser and a plotter. I wouldn't say I was a pantser because I never really flew by the seat of my pants, you know? I always knew where I was going, or I had to figure out where I was going before I could start writing. But I also never really dove into outlining. I would throw something haphazardly together, maybe fill out maybe 5 story beats from Save the Cat, call it a day and start writing. To no surprise, I would always get stuck, usually in that soggy middle. So for this project, I'm doing something so completely different than what I've done before. I am doing a thorough outline. So I am going to plot out my story beats using 2 different outlining methods, like 80% of one and 20% of the other. Then I'm going to assign all of those beats into what chapter they should be, and then do a chapter by chapter outline with bullet points. Yeah. Wow, saying it out loud just reminded me how much work I have ahead of me. And I'm scared. I'm not gonna lie. I'm actually like a little scared to throw all of this together. For my outlining, I'm going to be using the 6-act story structure and some beats from Save the Cat. But I'm scared. I'm scared because, nope. I said, I promised you guys I would be real and honest, and we're friends now, I feel. So I can just lay it all out there. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist when it comes to my creative work, and I am my own worst enemy. I just gotta say it. I am. I completely shoot myself in the foot with every creative project I start. And that's hard to admit out loud, especially for someone who's almost 30, who doesn't look it, I know, and has a lot of dreams, like too many to count sometimes. Dreams of stories I wanna write and projects I wanna do and things I wanna create, but my need to, or I guess the feeling I have of like that I need it to be perfect on the first try, like constantly creates this roadblock for me and every creative project I've ever done. And that definitely includes writing. And I think I've always been scared to do the outlining process because I haven't ever said this out loud. Oh my God. What if my outline is bad? No, like really like think about it. Maybe don't if you're like a perfectionist and like an anxious person like I am, because now I'm second guessing if I should be making this video. But what if it's bad? What if I spend all this time and do all this work and make this video for you and write a whole outline and it's absolute trash? Like it's a dumpster fire. What if that happens? What do I do? I don't know. It's okay. It's okay. If it's bad, I'll let you guys know. And if it's terrible, we'll try again. If it's terrible, maybe I need to shelf the idea and do a new one. Not what I want to do, but maybe that's a sign. Or maybe it'll be amazing. Or maybe it'll just be okay. I'll settle with okay. Because I've always been stuck with this idea, and it's gotten past the outlining stage. I've written stuff and then scrapped it all and tried to outline again. And so I'll settle for okay. If I can just get a whole outline done, actually outline chapter by chapter, even if it's horrible, this is the next step to me actually writing. And that is the goal at the end of the day. I just have to write the damn book, guys. We just have to write the damn book. And guess what? Yeah, if it's okay, and then maybe the book will just be okay. Or maybe it'll suck. It is probably gonna suck. But that's what revisions are for. And revisions are actually my favorite. I know. But that's because I used to be a freelance editor, so I like editing. But that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. Okay, right now, you guys are hearing me. I, Michaela, promise that even if my outline is horrible, I will continue writing this project. Even if it's absolute dog shit, I will power through and finish the damn book. Pinky promise with me? Perfect. Okay, so without further ado, let's go to the screen. Okay, so let's jump into it. So the outline that I'm actually using today is just the 6-act story structure. The 6-act story structure was created by Marshall Dotson, and you can see that he wrote a book about it. He actually has some really great videos on YouTube that I watched, and it basically just breaks down, he has so many videos. He basically has taken the typical 3-act structure. As you can see here, there's like 3 different phases that everything's separated into, and then broken it down into 2 acts per phase, as he calls them. I really like his 6-act structure because it has more beats. I went to the story structure templates and I just downloaded this Microsoft Excel one and uploaded it into my Google Drive. You can also use it as a PDF here. This is like a nice way if you want to like print this out and write it. I basically just copy and pasted everything over to this beautiful Google Drive document. I've also added some of the Save the Cat story beats on here just so I remind myself what's going on. So I do have the opening image, the setup. This is the fun and games section. This is the bad guys close in section. All is lost in the dark night of the soul, etc. So we have kind of a mixture of this 6-act story structure and Save the Cat. I know that seems a little crazy. You're probably like, why are you making more work for yourself? But I really want to treat this outlining process almost like a mini zero draft, a double zero draft. I'm viewing this outline as a prequel to my zero draft. A prequel to my prequel. How I define the zero draft, I literally am going to write the first draft with the knowledge that it can be bad. Now I know that is like given knowledge, like the first draft is supposed to be bad, but like I said, I have perfectionist tendencies when I do creative things. So if I'm calling it a zero draft, first, it feels like less pressure than a first draft. And there are times when I'm writing and okay, in a scene, I know I want A and B to happen, but I don't know maybe even how to get there, or I need to insert some things. I'm literally allowed to just write like, insert this thing here in red. You know, that's how I'm writing my zero draft. So I want my outline to be as robust as possible just to try something new. What I've been doing in the past did not work for me. So let's give it a go. These gray beats here, this is stuff that I don't feel like is like a chapter beat for the 6-act story structure or should be in the chapters, but it's more or less things that you should know before the story begins. So we have this inciting incident that happens before the story. It's described as something that happens often before the story begins, which if it does not occur would prevent the story as it exists from coming to be. I like this because we usually think of the inciting incident as this beat, the catalyst, or in 6-act story structure, it's called the disturbance, which is still going to happen. This has to happen to have a book. But I like that there's also something that happens before the story begins that sets your characters in motion. Then your character will begin the story in a less than ideal situation. So we want to make sure we know what that is. And usually this is the main character. What is your main character's desire? And what, if any, pre-existing conflict might there be with the characters, with the world at large? I also like that he reminded us to talk about some likability and empathy factors. That's something good to remember. Like, we want to make sure our readers like our characters from the get-go. We want them to follow on this journey. So then I have my opening image, which I am going to take this as a symbolic opening image, and I already know what I want that to be. And then the setup, which is setting up imperfect situation, the initial desire, any pre-existing conflict, and likability factors to lay the groundwork for our story. So that's really what we're doing here is we are in the setup. I'm just taking all of this and I'm going to fill out for the gray and put it into my setup chapter. Then there's an oppressive opposition. So this is the character's initial desire and or their initial goal, and it's being oppressed by something. So this can go along with that imperfect situation, but your character has a goal in the beginning. Something is antagonistic towards it or not letting them get it. And what I like about the 6-act story structure is it really takes us through the different goals that your character needs to have throughout the story. So in Act 1, we have that initial goal, which when the story opens, this character should already be pursuing something, and then they have that oppressive opposition towards it. We're also watching them take action towards that goal. So this is all laying that foundation for our characters and setting up that they have a goal that they're working towards in the beginning of the book. Then we'll move on to the catalyst, so that unexpected event that happens that interrupts our character's normal and pushes the character through into our main story. They're going to have a dilemma, so they're placed in a position where they're going to have to choose between life as they knew it and this new course of action. There might be a new role that they assume that's going to be explained to us. There's usually that debate, so that refusal to the new role. I also like that they add in this nudge from fate, which is optional. So if they have some sort of outside force that drives them to accept this new role or some symbolism happening here, I don't know if I'm going to use this yet, but I like that it's an option. Then we have a moment where they're accepting their new role and they're thrown into that unfamiliar situation. This is our first act. That's what I'm going to focus on right now. And the main things I'm focused on when thinking about the first act is that initial goal. I want to make sure that I have this down and want to make sure that I have the catalyst. So my first step is I'm going to write out what happens for each story beat, and then I'm going to try to organize them into chapters over here. Okay, so I have just completed writing everything out for Act 1. I decided not to do this nudge from fate optional. I just don't think it fits with what I'm trying to do here, so I'm just gonna hide that row. I also didn't fill out anything for setup because I do feel like it is being pretty repetitive of what these story beats are indicating. I'm basically just going to be writing this stuff into a chapter. I'm realizing it's just a small piece of the puzzle. Like, Some of these aren't really even going in necessarily order of what's happening, and it's just a ton of jumbled thoughts. I've never done a chapter by chapter outline, and that's what I'm trying to ultimately do here, but now I'm realizing why I had such a hard time before. Like, this isn't telling me what happens. Like, it is, but it doesn't give me pacing. It doesn't show me a good order of events. It doesn't give me scenes, right? These are just like little sticky notes reminding me what I need to do. It's very helpful. I think these are very in-depth, and I actually changed quite a few things than what I had originally thought this first act was going to look like. So that was pretty cool. It definitely made me think, but I am realizing it's going to take a little bit more effort to put these into chapters post this process. So we're going to move on to Act 2. So Act 2 is just these parts right here. It's really that fun and games section of Save the Cat. So my character is going to find themselves in their unfamiliar situation. Unlike anything they've ever experienced, you know, they're stepping through the door, they're breaking into Act 2, moving into a new world. And then of course we get a new goal. So my initial goal for my character should have either been completed or not completed based on whatever happened in Act 1. And now we're doing the transitional goal. I really love breaking down the goals that we all have, or that our characters have, because I think it's a good way for me to remember how to keep moving the story forward, is to keep using these goals. So the character will receive a new goal that transitions them out of this initial state and into the main events of the story. So they're going to need a new goal now. They're going to take action towards that goal. They're going to have some incidental opposition. There's going to be something that stands in the way between them and their new goal. They're also going to get a reality check. They're going to either like hit a major roadblock and fail completely, or someone's gonna give them some hard truths. Something's gonna happen here that's gonna kind of stop them in their tracks as they're working towards that transitional goal. And then they're going to make this recommitment. The character commits or finds himself committed to becoming the epitome of the new role that they accepted in the beginning. In doing so, they now are gonna become an active participant in the central conflict. So there's no more resistance, there's no more hesitance, but we're now gonna fully commit to our new role. And that's going to launch us into the midpoint that we have here. So let's crank back that music and write Act 2. That was also harder than I thought. I actually took longer on this one than the first act, but I think this was very helpful because it's twofold. This isn't as helpful for me to understand what's in each chapter, but it is helping me understand what I need to flesh out these different points of the book, because I have always struggled with the fun and games section. I've always been like, okay, what are we doing though? What are the fun and games? So this was pretty helpful to like flesh that out. And I'm excited to see, I don't know, I made a couple big changes. Again, like what I have happening in the commitment is what I had for happening like over here. So I added a lot more things that I think is going to add some depth to this book. Act 3 is from the midpoint to change or not to change. So we have the midpoint, which the midpoint is a false victory or a false defeat. So this will raise the stake for our hero and it will force them to narrow their focus on winning the day or surviving. Sometimes a ticking clock is introduced here, really just like stakes are raised, urgency is happening. Then we have the central conflict. So this is where the character learns more about the world, and they will develop a new goal that becomes the main goal of the story from here on out, and it's usually directly opposed to whoever your antagonist is, or it's just the main conflict of the story. I like that they put this conflict of ideals, so this is just forcing you to look at both sides of the central conflict from the good guy's perspective and the bad guy's perspective. Then there will be a new false goal. So some sort of false goal that happens that makes the main character feel like this will make everything right and everything okay, but this really isn't the case, and there's still something bigger they have to accomplish. So they're going to take action toward that false goal. And as a result of their decision at the commitment, the character now will come to the attention of the forces of antagonism. So whatever decision they made around this point in the book is going to come ahead here. And now there are entities or people or something coming after them, externally or internally. There will be a major turn of events that raises the stakes for the characters and their allies. There will also then be a moment of truth. So as a result of the turn, the main character must reevaluate their strategy, analyze who they are, and decide to be truthful with themselves. Or this is sometimes when an actual moment of truth is given, like this is a plot twist and we're going to give you the piece of information you really needed. And then you will be faced, or the character will be faced with the decision to either change their perspective and who they have been, or retain the same outlook in the face of all that's transpired. So that is Act 3, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm the most nervous now for this one, but let's jump into it. This part gave me more struggle than I thought. A lot of things were going red. I am deciding to not focus on the conflict of ideals, so I'm going to hide this row. And then I have this one in red because I'm just unsure if this makes sense, but I wanted to get something down, and so I just have it in red to remind myself when I go back to do the chapter by chapter outline that this may change. Can you guys tell I'm getting more discouraged as the outlining process goes on? I'm just like second guessing if any of this makes sense, but that's okay. So now we'll go into Act 4. So in Act 4, we start with a doomed plan. So having made the commitment to fight at the moment of truth for our character now devises and implements a plan of action that is destined to fail. So it's not necessarily a goal, but they make a legit plan. It may fail outright, or it may seem to succeed only to have grave consequences. Then there is the penultimate goal, which is that's the second to last goal. The character's goal for this act is one step removed from the ultimate goal. So it's just almost the ultimate goal. Their pursuit of it leads them to realize what they need to do to end the overall conflict once and for all. They're going to take action towards that goal, and then they're going to have self-inflicted opposition. So the character makes the conscious decision to go up against the forces of antagonism, and because of this, there's going to be a lot more internal struggle with this and some self-inflicted wounds. So I put all is lost here, even though there's an all is lost down here. This is all is lost, the save the cat beat. I have it lined up here. That would be what they're calling the low point. So something unimaginable happens with grave emotional consequences for the character. They're going to look back on all their actions and they're going to feel as if they failed, which feels like the all is lost point, I guess, to me from Save the Cat. After the low point, something happens to make the character dig deep within themselves. They're going to have a reinvigorated version of a plan, a high risk with a high reward plan starts to happen, and then they realize what the ultimate and true goal is, and they're going to take action towards that goal. Let's jump in. Okay, so I actually messed that up. This is Act 4. So we ended at the long shot, which makes sense. The ultimate goal is then in Act 5, and we have action towards that goal. Yes, so my bad on that. I feel like every time I come back for this little reflection piece, I'm like, this act was harder than the last act. But man, it is very interesting because I don't know if you guys can see when I speed it up, and I know I have this like blurred so that, you know, you don't just write my whole book for me. Give me time. I will write out a beat and then continue on down the line, and then I go back and I erase it and replace it or move it down. It's definitely been fun to see what is changing from what I originally thought when I went into this plan. So I already filled out the ultimate goal in this. I actually did not fill out, I know I'm bad, these action towards goals. And if I tried to think of those, to be honest, like I think we'd just be here for a while. So I'm gonna give myself a break. I know what the goal is. I'm unsure of what that action will be, but I think that is gonna be more helpful when I do the chapter by chapter breakdown. After our character tries this long shot, they're reinvigorated by the newfound resolve, and they have a new plan with like high risk, high reward. They then go into, now we know what the ultimate goal is, which is just slightly different than the penultimate goal, and they're going to take action towards it. We then come up against the ultimate opposition. So our bad guys, the forces of antagonism, whether that's external or internal, are now out to destroy the character completely. So everything comes to a head. We have a all is lost moment as well. So the character may experience some initial success, but the forces of antagonism rally, and it seems the character's long shot is doomed to fail. But then there is a final push. Faced with this imminent destruction, the character decides to put everything they have into one final endeavor. They'll use what little they have left to get the ultimate goal done. This is that finale moment in Save the Cat. And then actually Act 6 is just one beat. It's the new situation. So it's the denouement of the story. So we're gonna see the character adapt to the new situation that all of these actions have created for them. I'm actually writing this as a duology right now. So my new situation is actually the overall story's midpoint. Funny enough. So I'm kind of ending on a cliffhanger here. I'm excited because I've known from the beginning that I kind of want my main character to fail at their ultimate goal. So let's go ahead and write my character's failure. I'm actually kind of freaking out because I knew how I kind of wanted to end the story, but I actually completely changed it, flipped it on its head, and I gave myself goosebumps writing out the ending. Wow, okay. I'm very excited. I think this all came together pretty nicely. Oh my gosh, okay. I can't believe it's done. This is my outline. I actually start writing these chapter by chapter beats. We did it. That took a long ass time. I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts. I really like this exact story structure and Save the Cat both to like study story. I didn't realize it wasn't necessarily gonna help me put it into a chapter by chapter method. That never connected for me in my brain for some reason. That took me a minute. I started outlining, then I was like, wait a second. I actually don't know what chapter this would be. I actually still have to figure out the structure after this. Are you kidding? No wonder, honestly, that I've always been such a bad outliner or like scared to be a plotter. So I did all the beats and then I went through. I only showed you guys some of it because honestly, that took me a couple hours and you don't need to see me like do that sped up. But then I took all of that and put those into chapters. And then I started doing that chapter by chapter outline. Every chapter has about 4 to 5 bullet points, which is kind of crazy. And each bullet point is like a paragraph long. So I guess 2 things. One, I realized it's harder, I guess, for me to put the story beats where it needs to go in what chapter. But then once I have that information, I mean, the chapter ideas just flew by. Like once I knew which beat was in which chapter, or maybe we needed to add a middle chapter in between the story beats, I knew what we needed to do. It was great. So it was scary and awful and great.
You're gonna suffer, but you're gonna be happy about it.
I'll take it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you got inspired by this video. Maybe you even learned something, or maybe you just enjoyed the video in general. No matter what, if you liked this content, please go ahead and give a like down below. It really, really helps the YouTube gods. And if you aren't already subscribed, what are you doing? Come on, subscribe, hang out, and keep following me along on my writing journey. In the next video, we're going to talk about characters, which I'm very excited about. So don't forget to check that out. Keep writing and I'll see you next time. Bye, writers.